Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV. We're doing our Twin Peaks review, going episode by episode in order. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me today is the young 20-something millennial Professor Pixel. We are on Season 3 of Twin Peaks, Episode 11. And Pixel, I have to say this. Out of all the episodes we've talked about, there's being some dark scenes, some spooky scenes, some interesting scenes, some surreal scenes, whatever you want to call Season 3. I think this episode's one of the strongest in terms of how powerful some of these scenes are with some of the minor characters or the characters that are not on screen a lot. So a lot is really done with a little here. And actually, I think everything that's side characters and small level stuff, in other words, not Dougie's plot line and not the race to get to Twin Peaks, everything else in this episode, these minor characters of stuff that we don't know how it ties in or if they're just filler, I think are phenomenal. This is a creepy, dark, mean episode, and I love it. I think it's a fantastic one. What's your initial take?
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. It has quite a bit going for it, and honestly, I think this might be my favorite episode in a while. But I think I think the best way to talk about it is to go through it. So,
well, let me stop you right there.
Okay.
Because there's fire where you're going. Please continue.
Back where we belong. You might not be able to tell, but it's been a while for us. So when that intro starts playing, it's damn fine. And I have my coffee here, and it's not as fine, but the effort is noted. We come across mountains. They're boys playing catch. They have, with a baseball, they have mitts. There's about 3 of them. This little... they seem like brothers, and the little one is running after the ball. But eventually, the ball ends up down towards the road, so the oldest one goes to get it. The boy stops as he's hearing some kind of moaning not far away, and it's clearly a woman. So he steps over, takes a look, and there is a woman covered in blood and crawling towards the road. So quickly he says to a brother, "We gotta go get Mama." Before we cut away, we see, I believe her name's like Amanda Seyfried, something like that. Becky Briggs. And she calls somebody and says there's no car, and she screams before she goes ahead and calls her mom, Shelly. And Shelly straight away hears Becky in a panic, and she tells Norma, "I've got to go," as she leaves the Double R Diner. Arriving at the trailer park, Shelly gets out and goes towards the door, and Becky rushes out, steals the keys, and tries to drive off. Shelly climbs onto the car as Becky's pulling out, swinging the car around, and it throws Shelly into this patch of grass really violently. I was worried there for a moment before she drives screaming how much she hates him. And that's when Carl, the man who runs the trailer park, comes out and asks what's happening and blows this whistle. He pulls out this long whistle and blows on it, and here
Got
comes
some Andy vibes from that.
I know. Here comes this hippie van just right on out, ready to take him.
That's the old VW traveling wagon. That's the classic.
Yep. The hippies love it. But enough ragging on the car. They get inside and they're driving off. She wants to speed up, but Carl tells them, "We got to get there in one piece." She tries to call Norma and tells her trying to figure out what to do. And Norma says, "You need to call Bobby." So there's this old ham-looking radio in the van. So Carl sets it up, calls the sheriff's station, and gets Bobby on the line. That's when, Shelly starts telling Bobby exactly what's going on. And I will take a moment there.
Yeah, this opening scene with the kids, of course, when you think the ball rolling in the straight, you're like, "Oh, damn it." With what we've seen with kids in this show, I'm still mad about the one kid getting smashed, right? So they're not going to do it again, but it reminds you, and that's what I like about this scene setup. It's not, oh, it's baseball in the trailer park, whatever. It's not this. No, it's something that makes sense with the ball going across involving the kids that reminds us that one had already gotten smashed. And of course, the way it's shot, you just see the ball rolling across. You don't hear anything. So it's very quiet. It's a very still scene. And immediately it's just got dark vibes all over it. And it gets even darker when you see her because uh, to me, you can make, we know they're actors, we know they're actresses, we know the effects are usually practical, sometimes they're CGI or whatever, but sometimes just with simple stuff, it can look really, really brutal. And the lady that we see kind of there moaning in pain and just bloody and disgusting is Miriam, the lady that saw the car accident, the one that we saw earlier, the teacher. So this is that little subplot that if we hadn't talked about it, right now it's out of sight, out of mind because it's not central to the theme. It's that B or C level plot, but it's setting up some of the characters' things too. So I don't know if I know who these kids are off the top of my head. I just doesn't seem, it seems random to me, which is fine. I'm going, well, how the hell did she survive that really brutal opening scene that we saw previously too, where she got her ass beat literally, and then the trailer she was in got blown up. So I, I almost kind of got taken out of it when Shelley jumped on it because she's aged well. She's a gorgeous woman. She doesn't need to be doing a William Shatner, T.J. Hooker impression, on the top of a car. I thought that was just a little over the top for my tastes. Um, and I don't really know Amanda Seyfried too well as far as all her movies and stuff, but I think she plays the role she's supposed to just phenomenal in this because she's that young woman that is with the wrong guy, but quote unquote is in love, and she doesn't see that it's a bad thing. And that'll come into play in a couple other scenes there too, because like Norma, for example, she sees Shelley run off when she gets the call, and so Norma's just quietly doing bills, and she's aged well, she's older too, but you can see her having, as we even talked about in season 1 and 2, a little bit about Norma. She's got that motherly kind of relationship with her too, so it's nice, and it's like wow, it comes full circle again, and it reminds us of Big Ed, Norma, and the plans they had, and all that goofy nonsense that went along with it in season 2. But I'm glad that we're going to see Bobby based off of this. It's what it looks like too, because we saw him early on, and we haven't seen him in a while, and it's been that way for a lot of these characters. Even though Bobby was the main guy, he hasn't been in this season, and I think that would be an easy way to do Twin Peaks is get all the old characters, give them major plot points, but holding back on really giving a lot of major things or a lot of time on screen, I think is really, really good filler for that too. But yeah, Becky, she's got a gun with her, which I think is kind of key because she's basically gonna go whack her boyfriend, it looks like. And one thing I kind of put down here for my notes is the last time we saw her, I think, was in a car driving off where he kind of induced her to take the drugs that he had, and so she was under the influence. I go, well, is she under the influence now? Because she is really fired up, but it's not like the trippy dippy, smoking pot or whatever. It's the hard stuff that's coming in. And Harry Dean Stanton playing Carlin here, I just want to make a comment because obviously it's the last thing he'll play in. He does such a great job of conveying just a bit of hurtfulness or sadness about when somebody's in trouble. I mean, he's not like a puppy dog, but it's like when you get older in life and you can recognize situations as they start to develop, and you go, "There's nothing you can do to stop it. All you can do is just sort of be present." But on a lighter note, on the VW traveling van, where he's got the station where he pulls out the little ham radio thingy, the walkie-talkie. It's kind of cool because they also have a cigarette station there and like a thermos and stuff. So they're like, yeah, we got our thing all decked out there they want to. And even though it's old and dated, it seems kind of comfortable. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. But when she runs up the stairs and she's banging on the door for Steven, she takes the gun and she shoots. She empties the clip through the door, just yelling and screaming. And we see, for a minute there, I was like, are we getting a Bob thing because somebody's mad or some evil spirit? But it's just the way the camera shot is because we actually see Steven hiding in the stairwell with a young woman. Do you know who that young woman is?
Oh, was it a young woman? I
Well,
didn't.
somewhat youngish. Um, she is the little girl. She's the daughter of the doctor. what's her face from not Audrey's friend. Damn it, the
Donna?
doctor, the one that played. Remember the one that played the really a nice little place, and then did the song with Leland. What was it? Come on, get happy. It's your troubles, or whatever like that. And then he was
Oh,
going
and then
faster
she
and
never
faster.
showed up again.
That's her though. Remember you complained about that, saying why was she in here? We've never seen her before. And I had totally forgotten about her. This is supposed to be her grown up, involved in bad stuff. Yes. I caught the name
Wow.
and I'm like, oh, is that her? And I'm like, yes, it is. That's Gersten Hayward. So anyway, I
Wow.
just thought that was kind of neat. I know that throw you for a loop there.
Yeah, it does. I
It
didn't
gives us
notice.
something to do. And if you didn't know the show, it wouldn't mean anything. But that little girl playing the piano who's like super smart and then did like the really nice classical piano piece or whatever, Chopin or Mozart or whatever it was. Oh yeah, that's her. Because remember,
Wow.
it was Leland Palmer that was one of the things where he was starting to lose it, right? Because he was singing super fast and all that. And he could carry a show tune. It was like, wow. So I talked a lot about not much of anything for these first 3 minutes, but I thought it was an excellent way to open up with some serious tone for the most part. But then we get into Buckhorn, which will now hand it back over to you.
Yep. I will say though, there's a small scene in between these two moments where we see Maggie at the sheriff's station, and she's just patching people through. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but she gets like this special call on this one phone that's not with the regular station, and she says the exact same thing. All right, somebody will be on their way. Puts it away. Then we go to Buckhorn. There's a black car, and we see Cole, Diane, Bill Hastings. I'm trying to remember the name of the cop.
Mackley.
Mackley. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And they are at the place where apparently Bill Hastings met Major Briggs. We see Agent Tammy, as it were, moving around with Cole and Albert as Cole does the main approach. They see somebody moving in the background, but he quickly disappears from sight, so they don't check it.
But you know how he's dressed.
Oh, yes. All black. Kind of homeless looking. But it seems they're going to go in, but Cole stops. Albert's watching him as static is coming up, and he looks up to the sky, and what does he see? The sky is swirling above him. And it's getting more violent as Cole lifts his arms, but outside of him standing there, nobody sees anything. Nobody's noticing really anything. But there's something at the end, and it's coming, and it opens as almost like a window as we see a stairwell, and there's about 3 of these men in full black. Got a light. As Cole starts fading out of existence, that's when Albert doesn't let it go on anymore. He grabs Cole and pulls him back. Then another rumbling is heard as Albert notices a body. Diane, we see, who's just sitting there. She has her cigarettes out, as always, and she sees the same black figure moving in the background. The body of Ruth Davenport is apparently found, and Albert goes ahead, tries to take some pictures. Diane notices the black figure coming around and heading towards the car where Mackley and Hastings are sitting. And we zoom in on Mackley as we hear some kind of crunching. And that's when there's this sound, almost like a pop, but not quite, as the cop looks around and, well, he screams, "Oh my God," and everybody moves back. Everybody moves to the car, asks what happened. As Gordon Cole announces, well, he's dead, as half of Bill Hastings' head is gone.
Yeah.
It's really quite shaky. It's quite disappointing to see the actor go. He did a great job.
I agree. I thought the whole Hastings having an affair because he was interested in somebody, and their connection was conspiracy theory stuff, which makes us think of Dr. Jacoby, which we haven't seen a lot of, obviously, either, and his conspiracy angle. Dig yourself out of the shit. And here,
Matthew
I
Lillard.
guess we got enough of him because he did a lot with what little time that he had screen time. But I thought he was a nice little side character because he played against his normal type and did great. I want to say this though too, and I don't want to mark out too much, but this scene felt like a scene of horror because I look at these figures in black as ghosts, and I think a few episodes ago, I think it was episode 8, the one where we saw basically what one could describe as the origin of evil, in terms of nuclear bombs being tested and all that. And we had the black and white stuff and the bug crawling out of the girl's mouth, who's actually another character we may be discussing later. And I've always looked at them as, I don't know if they're supposed to be like spiritual caretakers of something, or demons that are supposed to warn you about stuff. It's annoyed me in a way that I've seen them because it's kind of taken me off of the realism of what Twin Peaks is supposed to be. And I know there's some spiritual aspects to the woods, but when you don't answer that and you just talk about it, it has its own mysterious thing. And to me, their journey going all the way from New York to all the way to where they're here, coming back to Twin Peaks, I think is great. But the fact that Cole led this, and each of them individually see their own different um, black character, I guess, I don't know what to call them. I think they're called the Woodsmen actually, but they all see it is centrally important too. But it's a good scene. It's the build up towards it without it really just being in your face. The head exploding was, again, kind of like Shelley jumping on a car to me. It almost took me out of it a little bit because it was definitely graphic. And we know these guys sometimes kill graphically, like they did at the radio station, but not all the time. Sometimes they just disappear. So it's like, okay, what's the intelligence behind these actions? Because they're all a group. They all seem to be working in unison, but we never, ever hardly see them. And I probably goes, God, are they going to be a major thing, or are they just going to be a side thing? Speaking of side things, though, of course, we kind of cut immediately from there after Cole saying, to me, I don't know if this is supposed to be funny, but he just goes, he's dead. It's like, oh, yeah, he is. It's a disgusting shot. Well, it's a well done scene. We're at the diner, and we see Bobby sitting down there with Shelley, and it's at night, and they're with their daughter. And they go through the typical things of, well, he's not good for you, and you can stay with me, but you got to leave him. She's like, yeah, I will, but I love him. Typical kind of stuff, but it's done well. And a guy comes in, I think his name's Red, to see Shelley, and that's, of course, Shelley's sweetheart, because her and Bobby obviously are not together, if we didn't know. And again, that's kind of what we're not used to, but it's realistic. And I just got to say, she's just slipping out of her outfit here. Incredible. It's very distracting while she's sitting down here. I don't care how old she is. She's just a gorgeous natural beauty. But some stuff like this, I'm like, are they trying not to have Shelley be pretty? Because remember, they had the Twin Peaks contest with all the ladies, and she's a beauty. And it's like, well, she's got very little play in this episode other than her daughter, and that's fine. But Bobby, remember the first time we see Bobby is when he's snapping his fingers. He's like, hey, man, and all that stuff. And now it's like he's a father and he's a law officer. He's, for all intents and purposes,
he's a man now.
He is. He's grown up, and it's like, this is interesting seeing these two high school sweetheart lovers that really were bad people, running drugs and involved in all sorts of stuff. And Shelley really was not a very good person, even though she might have been sweet. She just made bad decisions, dumb ones, that they're trying to do their best with their daughter. Well, what was weird about the scene, though, is that it kind of continues briefly, because when she goes out to talk to her boyfriend a little bit, and he's sitting there talking to her, there's a gunshot. And so they're like, hit the lights, and Bobby does the rogue thing. He goes out there with his gun. And again, this is two scenes I've talked about, and I'll stop here in a moment at the end of this third one and see what you think. But we see that Shelley's, making a little romantic rendezvous with this dude later. And we've not seen this guy before, I don't think. He's a nobody. But apparently in a family SUV, a little kid somehow got a hold of a gun and accidentally shot it off. And so there's a car behind honking the horn, and Bobby secures the scene. Another agent comes up. The kid, I'll say this because it's the only thing that I wrote down that was weird to me. The kid, I think, is just staring at him like you're an asshole or you're a bastard, and he's like maybe 6, and he's a really young kid, and Bobby's standing there, like I say,
He's
the
standing
threat's
there like a
been.
little man.
It is weird, and it reminded me of Miss Tremaine's little son, the guy that did magic with Harold, or my orchid guy, right, turning the cream corn and moving it around and stuff. Going, this can't be him. This little kid's a little too soft looking. He's not slick like the other kid. But there's what's happening while this is going on and everybody's watching is there's a car that's just honking nonstop, and Bobby goes up to it and has the lady try to stop. And she goes ape shit about we're trying to get home. I don't know why we're stopping. He's sick or whatever like that. And while she's saying this, a little kid in the passenger seat sits up and is just puking like this dark bile stuff, wherever. And I don't get it. I'm missing the connection. I don't think it has to do with the corn stuff that we said, whatever that term was about, being an essence or anything. And Bobby looks confused as hell, rightly so. And again, great scene, perfect setup. It's extended, it's long, but the end of it just is kind of, I don't get it. What was your take?
I'll go ahead and say there's just a little thing that we missed. Shelley did come back before the gunshot.
That's true.
So she was in the diner.
Yes.
Just so that way he's not leaving Becky alone, as it were. The scene, no, I agree. And it's very strange. I marked down the little boy too, because he's standing there. It's almost like his dad, which I think he's supposed to be kind of a certain type where he would have the gun just sitting there in an unlocked box in the car.
The problem I have with that, though, is anybody that owns a gun, a lot of people that are that type of character, like the way that family's dressed, they look like rural farm folk. Those people are usually the most responsible with the gun. So this just didn't make sense to me at all. And it's a pistol. It's nothing like an AK-47 or something. But I agree with you that they're made intentionally to look a certain way. And it's like, okay. And the kid standing there is like a man. You're right.
Yeah. And the way he looks at Bobby's like he's about to beat him up if he doesn't move along. And then the woman, I swear I've seen that woman before somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere I've seen that woman. Maybe in another show, maybe something else. I don't know, but I've seen her before. But from there we go where it's a little calmer. To the Twin Peaks Sheriff Department. There's Hawk and Sheriff Truman 2, the sequel. And they're looking at the cloth map that's out. And they're really just going through some of the symbols there because there's a fire. It looks like a campfire, but Hawk says that's not a campfire. It's a fire symbol. It means something else. And they go ahead and talk about how Major Briggs said there was a specific date and how the stars are matching into that date. There's corn as well. That symbolizes fertility, but it's black, so it's diseased. But the two coming together makes black fire. There's a symbol above, one we know, the one that's on the ring, the circle with these two little L's that kind of stick out of it, looking like a fat stick bird. That's the best way I can describe it. And, well, Sheriff Truman asks, what does that mean? And Hawk tells him, you don't want to know. That's when Lucy calls and puts the log lady through to Hawk. She asks if he found something. And what is it? Hawk says he can't tell her that. Log lady doesn't press and says that her log's afraid of fire, and there's fire where he's going. There's a good night and a thank you. And then there's one more knock at the door, and Truman goes to check it out. It's Jesse, a little deputy, and Jesse asks Truman if he's interested in seeing his new car. And Truman says maybe tomorrow. And that's pretty much where the scene ends.
Yeah, it's weird because here's another scene. You've talked about before where you don't really care for the ending on. Well, we're done, but we need a couple more minutes. So let's just put in a musical act at the end of these episodes. I get it. I understand what you're saying. It doesn't bother me as much as it did you. I like the Nine Inch Nails one, which I think was episode 8, which I think is probably right now the standout episode out of all these. But to me, all these individual scenes that I've talked about, the ending is just off. It's like, why the hell is this guy wanting them to see a car? I don't get it. He wasn't involved in anything that we know of. We've hardly seen him. If we have, I don't remember him. So it's like, why is this pertinent? Why are we doing it? Is it a way just to make us the viewer kind of go, what the heck, and keep us in a confused state? So there's this more beating on our heads and it adds up. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's putting too much into it technique wise, but it doesn't make sense, does it? I wrote down
You know
what the F
what I
times
think it
2 because
is.
it's the second time.
What I think it is before I pass it on back to you. Um, I think that what they're trying to show is that things aren't normal. And I know that's that's the usual in Twin Peaks, but things in the town today are starting to act up at the end of this night.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they're trying to show, but that's just
Well, what
my
I
two
want to point
cents.
out was that with Hawk's map and that symbol, again, corn on the map is something we've talked about. It represents like life essence, if you will. Um, with the forest, we know that there's the White Lodge, Black Lodge. We know Hawk's the one that basically talked about originally, I believe, in season 1 a little bit with Cooper about it. So we know there's something going on. We have, as a watcher, of course, know there's a Doppelgänger, which is out there, the bad one, and then there's Dougie, which is just another form of Cooper whose good part hasn't come out yet, or however that's going to work. We'll see. Um, but we've also seen good Cooper kind of in some weird psychedelic looking places and all that. So that's neither here nor there, but oh, you don't want to know about this other symbol. I mean, that's a classic, 101 takeaways, we like to call it in the sales field, where I slide the contract over to you with my gold cross pen and you go to sign it and whatever like that. And then I just take it back and go, well, maybe you're not ready for it. And it's scarcity. I take it away from you, and the human intuition is to come take it. And I thought, what a simple, easy line, but damn, it's effective. And that symbol is the one we've also saw on playing cards. I think the Briggs message that we saw many episodes ago, we've seen this before. And oh, but you don't want to know about it. Hawk says it so matter of factly that Frank doesn't even want to, follow through, because all of us would be like, especially guys going, no, you need to tell me, and he does, and I'm like, that's good. It kind of continues, I think, to pick up a little bit here as we're about halfway through the episode, because uh, and Robert Forster is Frank here. It's just he's so good. I think he was supposed to be the original one, and it didn't happen. And now he's doing it obviously in season 3. He's great. That's no knock on Michael Onakon or whatever his last name is. I thought he was fine too, but Forster's been around forever. God, and you know him too, even from all the stuff you watch. So, real great choice to have him in there. He just pops every time I see him. Lucy was on the phone for a second, but we don't care. Deputy Dumbass is nowhere to be found. We see a very Twin Peakish scene, but it's got a dark element to it, and that's where we see Albert and Gordon and Diane's sitting around, and Mackley comes in, and they all kind of basically talk about what the hell just happened, and they all admit to having seen their own version of these black woodsmen, these chimney sweeper types, or whatever you want to call them. But of course, coffee and donuts are brought to them by Tamara, who of course shakes her ass every time she walks. When you go back and watch that, you'll see that she over exaggerates it, but she has the look on her face like she has no idea what she's doing. So I smell bullshit, but I'm not complaining. So we get our coffee, we get our donuts. It's been long overdue. But they're not marking out about it other than a simple thank you. I thought that was kind of from what we're used to, having a moment where we go, yeah, coffee, donuts, pie. And now we're like, coffee, donuts, but we got some serious stuff that we're talking about, because as you described, they did find a dead female body, supposed to be Ruth Davenport. However, I think the word you left off was headless, because they're like, will anybody find Major Briggs' head? That's like, yeah, that's right. That's how this whole thing started. And it's interesting because the actor who passed away, He played Garland Briggs. They had to figure out a way to do it. It's not a very long scene, but I think we all both know that they're watching Diane because they know she's got that mysterious message, and so we know that watching it that she doesn't know that they're onto her a little bit. So we'll see what happens. I think they're setting a trap for her, and they're doing it in that old school kind of way where we're not going to see it until it happens at the very end, because damn it, they're good professionals, and that's exactly what Gordon Cole and Albert would do. Shift gears totally because we haven't seen Dougie, and we see
red balloons.
Yeah, they're on that rock structure that's in the plaza we've become familiar with, because now it's Dougie time a little bit, and Dougie gets summoned in with coffee by, what's his name, Phil. And I don't hate Dougie. I think it's kind of lighthearted. I've reached my breaking point though. But like I told you before, it's one of those things where it's like strap on. I think he's going to be here the whole season. I don't think we're going to get Dale till the end if we get him at all. But Bushnell Mullins, the boxer in there, talks to him and ties up this loose end about the Mitchell brothers called him, and he's got a check they needs him to deliver, and they're sending a car down for you. Yet we know that we're going to possibly see him getting killed because Dougie's the one that also won a lot of money at their casino. But to me, the only thing I'm going to add on to this is I think he's been a good boss. He's been good at acting it out, but in terms of a real life boss, this is the kind of guy you would want to work for, as far as I know. He's stand out, but not a wimp. Very few people are like that. He even talks about punching above his own weight class as a reference to himself, with that poster, behind him back in his prime when he's a day. And it gives us the way to Dougie to just sit there and be the mirror and not say anything, just repeat what somebody says. I'll stop there now and let you catch up.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect thing. You're at 5:30, and we get to see these brothers. And I haven't exactly reached my breaking point, but I'll wait until I finish to explain. Because they have their cereal. One of their girls says, "Oh, the guy's coming out of the bathroom now." And Jim Belushi says he had a dream about killing Dougie, and he can't wait to kill this guy, but he has to wait 3 hours. Dougie's let out by the boss, but before he gets to the car, he sees the one-armed man motioning him into this storefront. Bud watches him go ahead and get there, and then afterwards he has this box. Bud leads him to the car, waves him off, and the guy driving knows him. I guess his name is like Al or something. But he says, "Oh, House with the Red Door, I remember," before we're driving away. There's this nice version of Viva Las Vegas. I actually really liked it.
I don't like it at all, but go ahead.
Wow. Okay. I thought it was I thought it was nice. But it stops when we go out to a field. Rodney and Bradley are there, and it seems that Bradley, who was so excited to kill him, is starting to have some doubts. That's when the limo is coming up, as Bradley's bringing back up the dream. "I remember my dream. Your face was healed." He takes off the Band-Aid, and the cut that Candy gave him is gone. Finally, the limo stops. The driver helps Dougie Dale get on out and leads him towards the brother. The driver's about to leave, but Jim Belushi, Bradley, stops him. And he goes to his brother and says, "I remember this. There's something in that box. And if there is this one particular thing in that box, it means we can't kill him." And Rodney isn't happy hearing this, but they go ahead. He takes out his gun, and they entertain the idea. So he asks, "What's in that box? Is it a cherry pie?" And Dougie repeats, "Cherry pie." Bradley goes over, checks the box. There is a cherry pie. He goes ahead and frisks him after Rodney tells him to, and finds that check for $30 million they didn't know they were going to get. And Dougie Dale's in the clear as the brothers are screaming in joy. And Bradley says how he loves this guy. They shake his hand, and we quickly cut, as this is a final scene. We cut to a restaurant, and they're toasting to Dougie. and music that's kind of, I think it's described as upbeat lounge music, something like that, in the credits or the subtitles. The music shifts, takes a darker tone, and Dougie turns his head. They're going ahead and continuing on. They're talking, but Dougie's out of it. And that's when the old lady that we saw whenever Dougie Dale first appeared is saying, "Your jackpots! Oh, I was looking forward to you. This is my Denver. He's in my life again." Yeah, and she's saying how she just really wanted to thank him. She like kisses his cheek and then goes ahead, and it's a real sweet moment. But that's when the music picks back up. Dougie goes out of his lull, and that's when the girls come at the side. And Candy, oh my gosh, I just want her dead at this point. She is so annoying. But Rodney asks where she's been. She doesn't really answer. And as Dougie's still kind of drifting, he looks at the pie and starts eating. And I think it's Rodney who says, "This is damn good pie, isn't it?" And he repeats, "Damn good." And it's so close to that tone when he said "damn good," and almost. I felt that.
It's like he's breaking, there.
He that's when Rodney proposes another toast to the pie, to cherry pie. And you can feel Dougie Dale, just the Dale of him right there. But that's when Bradley goes ahead and asks for another piece of pie for Dougie. The music continues, and we look at the man playing the piano one more time before it ends with that somber tune. And this is how you go ahead and I can accept this musical intro because it's just the guy playing the piano as the credits are rolling, and it's acceptable. And that is where we end.
Yeah, a couple of things, backing up a little bit. When we see the brothers there, my whole thing with Jim Belushi is, and I've seen this with some of the actors in some of these scenes, I just feel like they're overacting. And I don't have a problem with it because it's not scene stealing. When I watch these two having their breakfast, I feel like it's kind of ad-lib. They just get their lines in there, but these guys really love each other as brothers, and it's funny to see them together. And I think for a very small minor role, they kind of, I've said this many times, they've made the most of it, because I'm watching them going, okay, I feel like they're just getting ready to bust and laugh, like, okay, all right, let's start over from the beginning. It just feels like they're not composed. Like the guy staring at the newspaper, eating a cereal, and he just looks like, okay, stare here until he says whatever. I mean, you can almost see them acting. It's like taking, I think, at the junior college or whatever, where people are almost good and can almost get a scene over. It just feels like one of those. And I don't mind it because the pacing that they have is deliberate, but it's good, because when he talks about the dream, I'm like, this is stupid, this is dumb. And it's like one of these just exercises, like, okay, you're a tree. Now you're a sad tree. Now let's work this into a scene, and you've got a spoon in your hand, 30 seconds, go, and you're like, this is dumb, this is stupid. But when he's trying to convince him about the dream, it's funny. And it would have to be the stupid cherry pie, because all I kept saying is, okay, this is going to be the funny part, because Dougie Dale's not going to get it. And it's like, what's in the box? I'm going back to 7, right? I mean, this reminds me totally of it. And it's the classic Vegas thing of, well, nobody knows where you're buried out in the desert. And the fact that they're mafia guys, allegedly, and he's now their best friend because he saved them the money. Okay, that's a little lighthearted to me. This was not a dark scene at all by me, but it kind of ties up some of these loose ends, which hopefully tells us that this last third of the season, we're going to have some bigger stakes. What I could not tell, though, with the music, well, actually, let me say this first. Let me go in order here a bit. The lady who calls him Mr. Jackpots, the one that also won, that was seeing the visions that he saw early on. This was a nice, sweet scene. It wasn't necessary, it wasn't needed. And I thought, oh, maybe they're having him there, and that convinces the two guys not to do anything with him later, or be on his side should something happen. Who knows, right? But it was a nice little scene. It gives her something, and it's quick. She mentioned how she got reconnected, I think, with her son, and now she's got a dog in her life. Just all the warm, fluffy stuff that you're like, that's cute, that's nice, I like that. Good for you, woman. It's sweet, and it's not sickening sweet, but sweet enough. And you're absolutely right when you say it almost broke when he was like, "Damn good." It's like he almost said it that way, like he's cracking, and I
Damn.
think that's what you and I are ready to see. What I could
Yes,
not tell
I'm
with the
so
music, though.
ready.
Yes,
So ready
we're
for
ready for
real
them.
Dale to be there, but I could
Yes.
accept Dougie for right now, at least in this episode, with how his part of the episode came in right at the end. I didn't feel like I was thrown around. I understand the situation with Dougie Dale, and it's getting kind of irritating, but with this episode, this is one of my favorite episodes thus far in this season. Um, and I am really looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, the old lady's had a super makeover. She looks outstanding. Her hair is done up. She's got this tasteful, classy dress and ensemble going on, a necklace going on, and it's perfect for her color and everything. She looks tremendous in it. She's very classy in here without looking trashy or hoochie or anything. She looks good. And she's very sweet to him, like, hey, you get to play a bum, and then you go the opposite way. And part of me too with the whole Dougie thing is just to say it, because I don't know if I put it in these words exactly. Is that I think that is probably one of the hooks. Is how can I make 18 episodes of Twin Peaks, these two guys, without really having Agent Cooper in it, and a lot of these characters only getting very minor time. Okay, because he can only make it with the people that signed up or that were alive, and you have to adjust storylines and stuff like that, and the episode count changed. And then when it was announced for 18 and starting the film, they banged this whole thing out. And so I like it because it works and it allows us to focus on all the other stuff rather than what Dale's doing. Because it's just enough to keep us looking at things. And these Stepford women, they're bugging me. I don't know why they're there. I don't get it. It annoys me too. They're hot, they're good looking, but I don't get their robotic nature, and I just don't. And again, they're eye candy. I get it, but maybe he was pumping himself making this film. But one of the final things I want to say is I did know that you would like the ending a little bit better because it's not just a band, but this piano, I can't tell if the sad piece is supposed to be Laura's theme, the really high spot, dun dun
It's
dun. I can't quite tell because it's so slow, and he's not playing the full like chords and all that. So I'm just trying to go with the single notes because I think that's what he's doing in the progression rather than a
really,
full fleshed out chord. I can't tell, and I don't
I
know.
thought that maybe, just maybe, it was something to do with Annie. I know we haven't thought about Annie Blackburn, and you weren't a big fan of her, but I was thinking it might be something with that, not
What made you think that though?
because I couldn't remember. It's been so long. If there was any kind of romantic music to accompany them, they obviously have their typical romantic tone, which actually is Laura's theme that they pull up all the time. But I feel like if they were trying to push through with Laura's theme is what's playing to really draw him in, they would have come just a little bit closer.
Maybe it's a tease because there's 5, 6 episodes left or whatever. I think we have 18 total. I don't know. I may be wrong on that. That's a guess on my part, but and remember, didn't we see James early first episode? We haven't seen him since.
Yeah. No, he's been gone. And it's pretty confusing how they go ahead and give us a touch of everybody there and then suddenly nothing. We're
Yeah.
almost out of episodes. Only 7 more?
This is episode 11. So what? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, yeah, 18 episodes, 7 more total. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, uh, the wheat's separating from the chaff. The meat is intensifying. We're getting to the nitty gritty of it. We're getting rid of all the sea level crap, although I don't quite think so just yet. But no, I'm enjoying it. I do appreciate some of the more adult subject matter and some of the tone that we get in here. Like I said, the one scene with Cole and the vortex, but the whole thing of something bigger than all of us and the unknown, that fear of the unknown, that's just right out of horror, and it was set up well. There was a lot less yucks in here and slapstick stuff, and I appreciate that. There was a few things that were kind of mildly funny or whatever, like the brothers and stuff too, and Dougie, if that's funny for people. But this episode makes me feel like wow, how far we've come since episode 1 of season 3. It feels just so long ago too when we get to some of these things. And I think a part of that has to do with showing everybody a lot of the characters early to say, yes, they're going to be in here. But then you take it away and you hold them back except for a minute or two here and there. And especially with Agent Dale Cooper being really Dougie Dale and not being a real character that we've come to know. I think that's really helped a lot, actually. I think 18 episodes of everybody might have lost its charm because I think that the less is more is the right approach here, and it's working wonders. What are your final thoughts for this episode?
Overall, I think it's a fairly solid episode. I episode 8, but this episode felt pretty much like, I know Twin Peaks now is different. It's very different from what we used to have, but it's perfect for me.
Good, good. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons too that we decided to cover Twin Peaks here on the Extreme Movie Show is that there's only a few select things I think of television that we've decided to branch off into a little bit, and this is one because it was so big and so popular at the time. And again, it has to do with characters. The plots aren't what you do, and let's not forget that Lynch primarily, even though Mark Frost has a big hand in creating and developing and writing things, Lynch is a visual like artist himself, a painter, I believe, or some things too, physical media. So film being a visual medium, I think he tends to set up things in terms of scenes and structure and the way it's shot, and the other stuff you kind of fill in better. And I go back to the 1980s Yngwie Malmsteen School of Hard Rock, where he's once quoted as the two great things to really make everybody understand the 80s when it comes to hair metal is that um, well, music's the important thing. Lyrics not so much, and you can mean whatever you want about a song, but the music's the most important thing. If the lyrics kind of suck, that's okay too, because sometimes they're just there and they're just there to film the music. Well, it's true. We're listening to music, but some people focus on the words and the meaning. And not that that's a bad thing, but the music's primarily the important thing. But also the second thing too is how can you say less is more? That's bullshit. More is more. And of course, he's a super shredder, virtuoso, and all that. I think Lynch takes the same approach in that he says, you know what? I don't really care too much about the details about stuff. And if there's loose ends, that's fine. I see images. I want to fit them in somewhere. And somehow I'll try to come up with this common thread that unites them. And those people that are huge David Lynch fans understand this. Those that have no idea what the hell we're talking about listening to this have understood it up to this point in season 3, that there's just things that he does a certain way that a lot of people don't. And that's what makes him unique. And that's why I'm telling you, when this came on TV back in the late 80s, early 90s, this was a phenomenon. You get your hot shows, you get your Miami Vice actually gaining some traction in summer reruns as the way things used to be on prime time. But when this came out, man, this was the template, despite a lot of great TV before it, for people to do some of this stuff, like we said in the 2000s and all that, or even in the 90s, the HBO shows like Rome and God forbid everything else that's come since then, Westworld, any of these really detailed, high character driven stories. Thank you, Twin Peaks. Thank you, David Lynch. But yeah, this definitely feels that way. And I kind of don't even care about some things in here, but I do enjoy watching them. And that's where I'm still entertained. So like you, strong episode. I'm enjoying it a lot too. Any other final comments?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for thanks for joining us here on Twin Peaks.
Yes. And until next week when we'd have episode 12 dropping out. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme. Good night.